maintain a constant internal environment. And if it is normal, my body will not, there will be no change in temperature. But the moment when the hypothalamus, detects a change in temperature. I want you to see if you can write down 3 actions that my body will take when it is too warm, when the temperature is rising. That will happen when it's a very, very hot day. And the heat of the environment conducts or radiates into my body. And then also when it is too cold, on a cold day where I will lose the heat inside my body. And you are welcome to use your textbook. We are studying, We are studying, so we look in our textbook, we look at the difficult words, and we make sure we remember them. Less. Okay, so perhaps you have something else. You can just add. We can have too hot, hair muscles relax. Skin goes red, vasodilation, and sweating. We want to say more sweat will be released. No. Hair muscles will contract and form an insulating layer. Of course, when we are higher level, we will definitely need to explain each one of these happenings in the body. You agree? Vasoconstriction, and we can say shivering will take place, which is a bit different than sweating. So if you have less sweating there, you are correct. You can also add the less muscle contraction. Yesterday, many of our kids in our school complained that they do not feel they feel tired. So then I thought, okay, but it was a very hot day. So actually they are not tired. It is their muscles that do not want to contract that much. Because when we have muscle contraction, we need to release more energy. But when I release more energy, respiration takes place. And with respiration, what is a byproduct? Heat. We understand that. So perhaps we are not really that tired as that we want to do things a bit slower, not to produce that large amount of heat in our bodies. Do you agree? Do you understand? So actually, we can add there less muscle contraction, and here we have shivering. You understand? So please, higher level, let's make sure that we can add this to our to what we know, that we can explain each of these terminologies. So why do we need to maintain a constant temperature? I'm just revising now. We need it because our enzymes need an optimal temperature to function at, and that is 37 degrees Celsius. If it is too hot, we can get hyperthermia. Hyperthermia means my body starts to overheat. Can you help me? When you experience hyperthermia, which normally happens during our summertime, what will you do? Except your body really cannot control its temperature anymore. Listen carefully. Hypothermia means your body cannot. It's trying with sweat. It's trying with vasodilation. It's trying with all that stuff. But it cannot control it anymore. What behavior will help to conquer hypothermia? Like, you can go into a swimming pool, a cold shower, drink something cold. Nah, that helps with hyperthermia. Exactly. You drink something cold, you take off your warm clothes and rather wear short sleeves, short trousers. You agree? Okay. Right, so that is hyperthermia. And then the opposite of hyperthermia is when it is so cold that your body cannot regulate the temperature anymore. And that is 35 degrees and below. Then your body is much too cold for your enzymes to function optimally. So you will function really slow. And what will you do now, Koros? When you suffer from hypothermia, your body cannot regulate. It's trying, but there's no energy left to produce heat. What will you do? You will put on a jacket, put on a woolen frock. Nah, you will drink something hot. You will cover yourself with a blanket. And you can hug someone. Yes, animals do have many ways where they are bundling and putting their heads together. Okay, interesting, when you reach an accident, many times due to shock, a person experiences hypothermia due to shock. And then they cover them with a blanket. Nah. But it's better than leaving the person out in cold. Yes? Yes. Yes. Okay. Right. And that brings us to the hypothalamus. I gave you yesterday this diagram. So, and we actually just talked about this the whole morning, about it is the hypothalamus that is checking our temperature all the time. The hypothalamus works with hormones. Which hormone will be secreted when you are very cold to make you warmer? Adrenaline. But also with my nervous system, nay, because it's nerves that pull the hair. Okay, it's nerves that constrict or dilate the blood vessel. Do you realize that? So to regulate our temperature, it's hormonal and the nervous system that helps us to regulate our temperature. Okay, right, class. So I did hand out a worksheet. I want you to start working on it now so that we just cover some old exam questions. Thank you. Let's start working and thermoregulating to get through this.
It's ShopRite's big low price birthday. We're celebrating with big deals and even vegetables, only $22.99. And a bottle of Oros squash concentrate, just $34.99. Don't miss out on our big low price birthday, only at ShopRite.
Grade 12, we are going to concentrate on the coordination in plants today. We are not used to a plant that can move. So we always thought to have sensitivity or irritability is to move towards a specific stimulus or to go away from it. But in plants, we also need to have a type of sensitivity or irritability because plants are living organisms. When we look at the plant, we know that there is a shoot system and a root system. And what is interesting is that we always find the shoots to grow in an upwards direction, and many times we realize that they grow towards the sun. Because we know that the function of the shoot system is photosynthesis, reproduction, storage, transport, which is done by the xylem and the phloem, and there is also hormones produced in the shoot system. The root system, we find sensitivity towards gravity and also towards water. And the roots need to anchor the plant. It needs to absorb water and mineral salts. It will store, we can think about the nice orange carrot that we eat. Transport this water and mineral salts to the leaves, and it also produces hormones. When we start with a plant, we know that the little seed contains life. That we will also discover later in a deeper sense when we do the growth of a plant. But today, I want you to see that germination means that that seed needs. It is sensitive for oxygen, it needs moist or water, and it needs a specific temperature. And when all this is reached, we will see that the embryo will start to grow and the seed will germinate. This is possible due to chemical substances that affects the activity of particular cells and organs in the plant. And we call that plant hormones or plant growth substances. This definition is important to remember. Chemical substance that affects the activities of particular cells and organs in a plant. We are going to study the example of auxins. And a golden rule to start with is auxins are produced in the tip of the shoot and the tip of the root. Produced in the tip of the root and the tip of the shoot. So, when we are looking at this ability of a part of a plant to grow towards light, or like the roots that is growing towards gravity, is recalled as growth movements, and it's made by a part of a plant. Therefore, we say a plant will not move itself out of the soil or its pot. It will only have different parts that will grow in a specific direction. If we have a response towards a stimuli, we will say it's a positive tropism. If it is away, it is a negative tropism. So if we look at the word phototropism, we know that photo means light. Photo means light. And if something is growing towards light, it is positive phototropism. So we will say the shoots shows positive phototropism, but the roots show negative phototropism. If we look at geotropism, it's also known as gravitropism. It is when we have a direction towards gravity. And of course, the roots will be positive geotropic. Chemotropism is when we have a stimulus of a chemical substance, and the part of a plant is stimulated to either grow into that direction or grow away. Hydrotropism, of course, will be water, will be water, and we will also find the roots to be positive hydrotropic and the shoots to be negative hydrotropic. So we are going to look at a video now that explains to us the whole sense of tropism. Just find our slide. Come on.
The unfurling of a flower as a day breaks, or the snap of a Venus flytrap shutting. Occasionally, plants can respond very quickly to a stimulus. But most responses in plants are far too slow to see in real time. These responses are controlled by growth. Growth responses are constantly at work, directing plants towards or away from a stimulus to seek out the best conditions. They're called tropisms. The most crucial plant tropisms are to light, gravity, and water. Responses to light are called phototropism. Responses to gravity are geotropism, and responses to water are hydrotropism. Growth responses are either positive or negative, towards or against the stimulus. For example, when this seed germinates, the shoot will always grow towards light and upwards against gravity. Whilst the roots always grow down into the soil and towards water. But how do plants control these growth responses? The answer is a plant hormone made at the tips of stems and roots. Auxin. The amount of auxin can be affected by external conditions, and it encourages growth. For instance, because light falls unevenly on this stem, more auxin accumulates on the shaded side, causing it to grow faster. The result is a stem that bends towards the light. Knowing the effects of plant hormones means we can use them for our own benefit. Auxins are used in rooting powder to stimulate root growth on plant cuttings and increase fruit yields. For all plants, tropisms provide a critical response system, allowing them to seek out the best conditions for survival.
This helps us to just see actually what happens, because in real time we cannot see how it is growing. So I like that video. They want us in the syllabus to understand the difference between the word tropism and taxis. Sorry, let me just continue there. So tropism refers to when a part of a plant is directed by a stimulus, while where an organism is capable of directed physical movement, a movement or any activity in response to a specific stimulus, it is more likely to be regarded as taxis or directional response. So what I want to use as an example is the moth or the insects that during nighttime is flying into the direction of light. They are attracted by the light. The light is the stimulus and it is directing their movement, in which direction they will move. So when we are referring to an organism that is directed to move into a specific direction because of a stimulus, it is called taxis. And a plant, a part of a plant that moves into a specific direction due to a stimulus will be called a tropism. Now it is important to understand what makes this growth possible into one direction. Perhaps you have heard it in the video. When the auxin is produced in the tip of the shoot, the auxin will diffuse. It is produced there in the tip of the shoot, and then it will diffuse down into the cells. But more auxin will collect on the shaded side. So if light is coming from this side, more will collect on the shaded side. It is important to use the word more there. This makes the cells on the shaded side to grow faster and they elongate. On the light side, they grow at a normal speed. Because I have now in one tip of a plant two different rates of growth, one on the shaded side, the cells grows faster and elongate faster than where they are normally grows on the side of the light. We say it is differential growth. Same cells on the same plant, but they grow at different rates. Why? there is more auxin on the shaded side. And we learn that auxin is stimulating cells in the stem when they are at higher concentrations. So, when we look at this, we see that the light is coming from the side. I have a control, which means for this coleoptile, which means I have a seed that germinated, and that first sheath that is coming out of a grass seed is called a coleoptile. I see that it will bend towards light. If I remove the tip, it will not bend towards light. Why? Auxins are produced in the tip. When I cover the tip with an opaque cap, it means auxins can be produced, but it is not stimulated to gather on one side. If I put on a transparent cap and the light can stimulate so that I have a higher concentration on the shaded side, it will bend. It will not help to cover the base because the auxins is produced in the tip, and it will still diffuse and still have a higher concentration on the shaded side. So it can still have a higher rate of growth. If I put in a gelatin block and diffusion can happen through the gelatin, it will still bend. If I put in a mica cap, that means a cap that do not allow the diffusion of the auxin to the lower cells, it cannot grow towards light because it means I do not have a higher concentration on the one side. So here we just have a repetition and something more. If it was put on that side, it will grow straight up. No. Although I have the light from one side, the auxin could not gather on that side. In this case, auxin could gather on that side. In this case, the cap was lifted and gelatin were placed in between. And that tells me that diffusion could take place through the gelatin, and because light was on one side, the auxin could gather more auxin on the shaded side. I'm going to skip that one. And this is the answers to the worksheet. So I am going to skip this for the video purpose because you do not have the video. Let's quickly revise. What is the function of the control? The control that we had there on our first slide, it is to serve as a compare for a plant that has its cap and its tip not removed and light from one side, compared to all the other conditions from A to E, whether I remove the tip or put a barrier in between. The control shows the normal growth of a plant. So we always try to have the normal conditions in the control. And what I want to experiment on or test, I will change. So we just revise. Auxins is produced in the tip of the shoot. It diffuses to other parts. More collects on the shaded side. The cells grow faster and elongate more on the shaded side. Normal growth rates on the side of the light. That brings us to differential growth, and it is stimulating growth in the stem. And we just have the same slide, unequal growth or differential growth cause the bending of the stem towards light. The advantages of the phototropism is that it can now absorb light so that photosynthesis can take place, and pollination is being helped because the shoots is taking the flowers into the air and it is visible for the pollinators to reach. So which region does auxin affect? Auxin affects cell differentiation in the stem, but it also affects cell differentiation in the tip of the root. And we will stop there today and continue then. When we look at human coordination, we immediately think about our response system. When we look at our nervous system, we know that in order to get the information from outside our bodies to our brains, there need to be senses. Nah. And we say there must be a stimulus. The stimulus is the change in the environment. It can be a light ray, it can be a sound wave, it can be something that you touch, it can be something that you smell or that you taste. Nah, that is the stimulus. Now, the nervous system need to change that stimulus into an electrical impulse. Do you see that word? Conducts impulses. If your book states that it is carried, please change it. We do not use the word the nervous system carries. The nervous system conducts or transmits. Okay? Along special nerve cells, and we call that neurons, enabling you to react to your surroundings, react and coordinate your behavior. Nee. So, when I touch a very hot plate, I will pull away. But when somebody is touching me softly, I will enjoy the feeling. Do you agree? So we need to react to the surrounding, né? And we coordinate our behavior accordingly. Okay. So what happens is the stimulus comes from the environment. The receptor will be one of our sense organs. Eye, skin, nose, taste buds, or ears. Now, then there is a neuron that needs to take the information to the central nervous system. We will repeat it, the brain and the spinal cord. The brain, spinal cords coordinates and then sends it with another neuron, the motor neuron, to the effector, which will be the muscle or the gland. A muscle will contract or relax, perhaps due to the stimulation, or a gland will secrete a hormone. You agree? Okay, that's basically what is happening with our nervous system. So, if we look at the two parts, we have the central nervous system consisting out of the brain and the spinal cord. First worksheet, I think, starts with that. The central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. And then we have the peripheral nervous system, which is all these lines that takes the information to the spinal cord and to the brain. Peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system is our two parts of the nervous system. The rest you do not have to know. Okay. You got that? Good. So, central nervous system consists out of the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system consists out of two neurons, sensory neuron, and that sounds like coming from the senses. You agree? Sensory neuron is coming from the senses. And the motor neuron is going to the action. And the action is the muscle, the pulling away. So that is how we know which one is which. The sensory neuron comes from the senses, and the motor neuron is going to the motor action. And we will get a picture just now. So, if we can write it in a diagram, we have the central nervous system consisting out of the brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system consisting out of sensory neurons and motor neurons. Now, if we say the sensory neuron is coming from the senses, it connects with the brain or the spinal cord. Then the motor neuron is coming from the central nervous to the action. Something needs to connect them. Do you agree? So, sensory from senses to spinal cord and brain, central nervous system. Motor neuron from. There is in between these two a neuron that connects them. But this neuron is in the spinal cord. It's called a relay neuron. Don't say it's a relay, it's a relay neuron. Or they also say the interneuron, same thing. And the interneuron or the relay neuron is in the spinal cord, but it connects these two. It's the connector between these two. Okay, you get the picture? Get the stimulus. Sensory neuron takes it to the central nervous system. Central nervous system coordinate and connect to the motor neuron so that I have action. Okay. And to connect them, we have the relay neuron. Okay. So I'm just going to remove that. Okay, then the motor neuron needs to talk to the voluntary muscles. What is voluntary? Please lift your hand. Can you all do that? Okay. Please digest your break time food now. It is already busy happening without you thinking. That is involuntary. Nah. So the motor neurons, some are voluntary, which work with the skeletal muscles, and some are involuntary, working with the autonomic nerve. You cannot control it. It is controlled by your brain, but you cannot do it very consciously. If I have a group of cells doing the same function, then I have tissue. Nee. So, when I talk about a neuron, I'm only talking about a cell. When I'm talking about nerves, I'm talking about tissue, because then I refer to a group of cells. Do you see that? So nerve is not equal to neuron. Nerve cell is equal to neuron. It is the basic unit of the nervous system, receives sensory, integrate and transmit information. Nee, receive, integrate, change the stimulus into an impulse and transmit the information. Reach the brain or the spinal cord. Now, the spinal cord, the central nervous system process, and it sends a reaction. So again, the motor neuron needs to receive the reaction from the central nervous system, integrate it, and send it to the muscle that needs to contract or the gland that needs to secrete. It operates through an electrical impulse, and it communicates with each other by chemical signals. So if I have a neuron nearing another neuron, it is not electricity. It's electricity, chemical signal, then electricity. We will study that. So, we will look at that. 3 main types of neurons that we want to know is the sensory, the interneuron or the relay neuron, and the motor neuron. How are we going to know which one is which? Fortunately, they look different from one another. Okay? The sensory one, the one that is coming from the skin to the central nervous system, we always recognize, we always recognize with a single cell body and one outgrowth from it. The motor neuron coming from the central nervous system to the muscle, you recognize this as a voluntary muscle, nee? Has this large body with many extensions onto the cell body. One extension on the cell body, many extensions on the cell body. And it has a very long extension in the direction of the muscle. Okay, we will go further on that one. Neurons that transmit commands from the central nervous system to the muscles, glands, and organs is then the motor. Right. Why do we have the word afferent there and efferent there? Afferent means towards. Efferent means away. Nee. And I use the Afrikaans here. Okay, I use the Afrikaans here to say that afferent is na. Because what is the nervous system about? To get to the brain. Nee. So, na-afferent is towards the central nervous system, and the E is for weg, away from the central nervous system. That is another way to describe the direction of the impulse. This name, afferent, efferent, describe the direction of the impulse. Sensory is the function from where to where. Motor from where to where. Okay. There we have another picture of the sensory nervous system. And this is called the axon. From there, this little purple line or bluish line that you see there, that is the axon. No, but it still stays, but they do not show you the line in between because it is actually covered. Okay, let me show you another picture. I can see what the problem is. This is the motor one. Okay, this is the motor one. So actually, they show you the covering there around that picture. Nah. But here they have cut it open so that you can see what is under the covering. So I want us to go back. I want us quickly to go back to that one. Let's look at this one. So you see the axon. Look at the direction of the nerve impulse. Nee. Look at the axon. Here I have a long part. There I have a short part. Okay? In the next one, I have very short outgrowths and a very long axon. So, and there we have the relay neuron. We will go back to those motor neurons. There we have the relay neuron. Do you see the relay neuron? It looks as if it has lots of outgrowths, and there's a very, very tiny short piece of axon. Right. You do not have a nice picture of the relay neuron in your books. You will receive a printed one of that. Okay? So that you also have a picture. We are going on. Don't worry, we are going on to that one. I know exactly what you want to ask me. You want to ask about this one. Okay. So, I want you to read now carefully. Read carefully the labels on the top, né? And see if, write it in pencil. Write it first in pencil and see if you can find the correct label, because you actually know the answers for each one. Okay? For each label. And you also have the function of each label. And then we will check that tomorrow.
Health innovation in Cote d'Ivoire that allows people to carry their personal and medical data on them in the form of jewelry.
do I actually have to come for every single antenatal clinic? Because those things are tiring.
Thereafter, we have the answers to the 5 frequently asked questions on maternal health on our weekly segment 5 Under 5. We also find out what exactly goes on in an intensive care unit and the crushing stress that comes with it. But first, what do you do if your baby is choking? We hear the untold stories of what could happen when a baby's choking gets serious and goes unattended.
On the Gold Coast of West Africa lies the peaceful and diverse nation of Ghana. I'm pretty close right now to the geographical center of the Earth. It is also one of the last pockets for elephants in the wilds of West Africa.
Every country in the world just about has cattle, sheep, goats, horses, donkeys, but it's only Africa that has the real megafauna, the charismatic stuff which people in the rest of the world want to see.
The passion that the staff have for the job.
There's value to a bird which brings birders to a place like this. I mean, this is a birding paradise. We see an intrinsic appreciation and joy from seeing the wildlife out here, but not everybody does.
You can't get to Moli and then will not be passionate about what we do, because you'll be the only one left. Everybody is passionate.
The only worthwhile war, the war against destruction, the war against loss, the war for peace, for balance, for inclusion.
It is out of my work. Buffaloes, elephants, tigers, atabi are still in existence.
If Moli fails, then Ghana is without wildlife.
Join me as we journey to the untamed wilderness of northern Ghana to meet these last defenders.
The people within the law enforcement agencies don't really know. You're talking about a roan antelope. Somebody thinks it's just like a goat.
Scientists are racing to find a COVID-19 vaccine. Creating a vaccine usually takes years, sometimes even decades. More than 150 vaccine candidates are being developed worldwide. Some of the trials furthest ahead have produced encouraging results. Several possible vaccines appear to have produced an immune response with antibodies, T cells, and no serious side effects. Antibodies are protective proteins that fight infections in the body. Some T cells kill infected cells. Others help B cells to make the right antibodies to fight a virus. It's uncertain how long immunity to COVID-19 would last. 6 other human coronaviruses have been known about for years. Natural immunity for the most common 4 is quite short-lived and generally lasts a few years. A COVID-19 vaccine could require booster jabs after years or even months. Scientists are using a variety of methods to make a vaccine. Several human trials are creating vaccines using the genetic code of the virus. Other human trials, and some with animals, are trying more traditional methods, such as using a weakened or inactive virus. This variety might lead to more than one type of vaccine. Having several could actually be very useful, as each one may be more effective among different people. Despite the promising progress, it's not guaranteed an effective and reliable vaccine will be found. If there isn't one, the virus might eventually infect everyone. Some scientists are hoping to have a vaccine ready for limited use before the end of this year, but most are predicting mid-2021. Once regulators have approved a vaccine, billions of doses will have to be made. Then there's the tricky task of distributing and administering it on a global scale. Collaboration will be needed so the poorest don't miss out. Health workers could be at the front of the queue to get it, but who should be next in line?
Joseph Parkman was in and out of prison, dealing and doing drugs. Then a drug deal went wrong. Joseph was robbed, handcuffed, and scared straight out of the business. For 6 months, he roamed the streets as a homeless addict. Then one night, in a baseball dugout, Joseph met a stranger who totally changed his life.
I stand in awe of the power of the God who's our creator. And Terry and I sit here on this program, and the Lord speaks to us, and it's the word of knowledge. It's one of the manifestations of the Holy Spirit.
Something not always godly.
Not always, that's right. That's right. Well, there's a lot of negative voices out there, as we know.
Yes, there are.
And
so how do you know when it's God saying, Perry, I want to speak this to you right now?
And sometimes you don't know. And I think you pray over it and you think about it. And sometimes you just, a lot of times I'll just envision, as you and I are talking here today, I may envision that I'm here talking with God. And how am I supposed to address this issue?
Okay? Realize Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is the same for you right now. So let's pray. Let's call on his name and let him do the rest for you. Let's pray.
You've been supporting us since we opened our doors. So we're here for you. You could be one of thousands of SPAR customers to win your shopping for free, instantly, with SPAR Rewards. Come in and get Nescafe Classic Coffee for only $69.99 and 900-gram Bokoma Wheat Bix for just $38.99. We're here for you.